According to a new report, Wendy Williams does not have frontotemporal dementia.
The Guardian has not done a good job of protecting my mom.
People started buzzing again after unexpected news about Wendy hit the scene, and it shook the whole conversation around her situation. Out of nowhere, new medical tests came back showing that the condition she was supposedly dealing with might have never been real in the first place. Even worse, the same people who were supposed to be guiding and protecting her in that court-ordered setup are now being talked about like they were part of the problem. This twist has folks looking at her case with fresh eyes, wondering how deep this really goes. Wendy has been trying to tell everyone for months that something wasn't right. She kept saying she wasn't dealing with the issues they claimed she had. But people acted like she was just talking into the wind. Even Nicki Minaj tried to shine a light on what was happening, warning folks that Wendy's situation wasn't just a random case, and that she could be targeted next. But just like with Wendy, everybody brushed it off until now. Things really shook loose when reports dropped that a well-known neurologist in New York ran a fresh round of testing. According to the coverage, he came to the conclusion that Wendy didn't have the condition that kept her locked in that guardianship for years. Imagine that. Years of her life controlled, restricted, and monitored off a diagnosis that doesn't even match the new findings. They had this woman placed in multiple mental health facilities, her show taken away, access to her loved ones blocked, heavy medications pushed on her, everything, all based on this one diagnosis. And now it's looking like she never had the condition at all. That's not just suspicious, that's scary.
She got fired from Hot 97 because she had a picture of Puffy. So if you don't mind, give me the story from your point of view and what was in the picture.
We were in Cancun. For whatever reason, dude was playing with Puff. He went behind him and grabbed his trunks and pulled them down. Some girls knew was taking pictures. They took that picture and emailed it back to Wendy Williams. Wendy Williams said she had him in a compromising position and like he was gay, something like that. She was gonna put it out. Wendy had shown people that email. Puff told Hot 97 if...
From what Wendy has been saying, none of this was accidental. She's insisted that Wells Fargo played a major role, allegedly setting things in motion so they could take control of her finances. They were the ones who originally pushed for the court to assign a guardian, claiming she couldn't manage her money and was vulnerable to being taken advantage of. That's when labels like frontotemporal dementia and aphasia were dropped on her, and everything spiraled from there. What makes the situation even harder to ignore is how things changed once her guardian, Sabrina Morrissey, got involved. At first, there were reports saying Wendy was improving. Then out of nowhere, she supposedly had multiple illnesses. The timing doesn't make sense at all. Even Kevin Jr. stepped in and pointed out how shady this all looked. He said the doctor originally told him Wendy's memory issues were connected to alcohol, yet her team still let her access way too much of it. On top of that, her family had their communication cut off completely. They didn't know where she was or what treatment she was being given. This whole situation is sounding more twisted than anyone expected, and people are finally starting to realize Wendy wasn't just talking, she was warning. Wendy has been fighting non-stop to break out of this guardianship, but the people in control keep blocking every door she tries to open. She even went as far as getting multiple independent evaluations from doctors who weren't tied to the court, and those evaluations pointed out that she didn't have the conditions she was being stamped with. Even with that, the team around her kept insisting she did, which just raised even more eyebrows about what was really going on behind the scenes. According to medical experts, frontotemporal dementia usually gets worse over time, not better. But Wendy has been showing the complete opposite since she got clean and steady 3 years ago. Her progress has been noticeable, and that alone made a lot of people start questioning why she was still locked under such heavy control. TMZ reported that her legal team is now preparing to file new paperwork within the next 2 weeks, setting the stage for a full court hearing where they plan to ask the judge to end the guardianship once and for all. If the judge refuses, her attorney Joe Tina is ready to push the case to a jury and ask regular citizens, not court-appointed officials, to decide whether Wendy should be free. That's a major move, and it shows how serious her team is about getting her life back on track. When Wendy first got pulled into this whole situation, plenty of folks were pointing fingers at Diddy as a possible player in the chaos. These two have a long, complicated history, and anyone who has watched them over the years knows Wendy never held back when it came to speaking on him. For years, she claimed he was trying to shut her down, and now people are wondering if any of that connects to what's been happening. Wendy once said someone emailed her photos from Diddy's trip to Mexico, and in those photos, another man was allegedly doing something intimate toward him. That's how she described it, and she didn't hesitate to talk about it publicly. She also questioned what really went down with Shine back when he was 19 and ended up taking the blame for that club incident.
They didn't get rid of her before he got back in New York, that they was not gonna get any music from any of his friends, any of the record labels executives that was cool with him. Everybody was gonna boycott their station. We was out in LA for about 3 days before we landed back in New York. Wendy Williams was in the radio station in Philly. He was fired.
Wendy always said the situation felt off and needed a deeper look. On top of that, she even raised concerns about Diddy and Cassie long before their relationship became a public topic. Wendy called things out early, and that never sat well with him, at least according to people who watched their back and forth through the years. Things reached a tense moment during an interview Wendy had with Diddy, where he suddenly mentioned her teenage son during the conversation. Wendy looked uneasy right away because it sounded out of place, and many people felt like he was using that moment to send a message for her to stay out of his personal life. Whether that was the intention or not, the moment left a lot of viewers uncomfortable. When the topic turns to Nicki Minaj, people can debate her personality all day, but one thing she's never been known for is making up wild stories. Lately, it seems like the public is finally realizing she might have been telling the truth way earlier than everyone wanted to believe. For the longest time, folks thought Wendy's issues came from her history with Diddy alone, but Nicki is now saying the situation runs way deeper than that. And she's pointing fingers at Jay-Z and Roc Nation too. Just recently, Nicki had a heated moment online after an interview surfaced with Charlemagne talking to Gucci Mane and Keisha. Instead of ignoring it, Nicki jumped straight into the conversation and accused Roc Nation of using Charlemagne to help push Wendy into that guardianship in the first place. She didn't hold back either, saying he was connected to Jay-Z, tied into business moves, and allegedly helping carry out plans that hurt Wendy's family. She made it clear she wasn't playing around and told everyone to remember her words because she meant every bit of it. Then Tasha K joined the discussion and added even more layers to what Nicki was hinting at. According to Tasha, Roc Nation has allegedly been preparing to pull the same type of move on Nicki that was done to Wendy, meaning a guardianship attempt. But the reason it hasn't happened, she says, is because Nicki is married to Kenneth Petty. That marriage creates a major roadblock for anyone trying to take control of her money. Because if a forced medical diagnosis ever got slipped through, her husband would be the one legally tied to her finances. That means no outside team could swoop in and take over, even if someone tried to push an unfair mental health label on her. Tasha pointed out something people overlook. Every celebrity who ended up in one of those restrictive conservatorships was either single or divorced at the time. Britney wasn't married when her situation started, and Wendy was already divorced when Wells Fargo stepped in and pushed for her to have a guardian. If either of them had been legally married, getting that level of control over their lives would have been way harder for outsiders to pull off. Nicki then called out people twisting her words and made it clear she never claimed to struggle with anything like schizophrenia. She reminded everyone that Kanye was treated unfairly too. He was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, which is a mood condition. And after that, people tried to grab at his assets just because he spoke his mind. Meanwhile, Wendy has been stuck in a luxury medical setup while her legal team fights to untangle the damage that's been done. Nicki's message came through loud and clear. She's warning people that these situations don't happen by accident, and she's not letting anyone rewrite her words or her intentions. People keep bringing up how other stars were handled, saying the pattern has been around for years. They mention how Michael Jackson isn't here anymore, and how Britney Spears had to leave the US for a while just to breathe after everything she went through under that conservatorship. It's the same cycle. Label someone as unable, take control of their money, and paint them like they can't handle their own life. And when it comes to Nicki, some believe the industry can't make a move on her because Kenny, her husband, stands in the way and blocks any attempt to take over her finances. A lot of people believe all of this started the moment Nicki spoke out about the vaccine situation years back. And now with this new wave of Wendy news, there are whispers that the timing is way too perfect to be random. Some people online are saying it's not a coincidence at all, that Wendy's guardianship was used to keep her quiet while Diddy's legal situation was happening. The idea is that if she wasn't medically silenced, she could have testified about things from their past that the industry didn't want resurfacing. Now that his trial is over, people think Wendy is suddenly safe to release because she's no longer a threat to anybody's defense strategy. And honestly, the timeline makes people wonder. Wendy had several independent tests showing she wasn't dealing with the condition they accused her of, yet none of those results mattered. But the moment Diddy's trial wrapped up, a new test comes in. And suddenly, it's taken seriously. That shift raised a lot of questions, and people are talking loudly about it. Meanwhile, Nicki Minaj is dealing with the same type of labeling. Right when conversations start spreading about Jay-Z possibly being next to face legal pressure after Diddy, the rumors about Nicki being unstable begin popping up out of nowhere. It's making people feel like the industry is trying to distract everyone with noise so nobody focuses on the real situations happening behind the scenes. The timing is wild, and viewers are saying it's getting too obvious to ignore anymore. Of course, people had strong reactions to all of this, and the commentary got intense. One viewer pointed out that if Wendy was misdiagnosed on purpose, her family should take legal action against whoever stamped her with the dementia label, because that one decision flipped her whole life upside down. Another viewer brought up how her condo was sold, her pet was given away, and many of her belongings, furniture, clothes, sentimental pieces, disappeared while she was locked under that guardianship. They also mentioned Wendy's own past struggles with rehab, saying it was sad to see how everything was handled instead of giving her proper support. People are speaking up louder now, and the conversation is shifting fast. As more details keep surfacing, people are starting to realize that Wendy's situation wasn't just about bad decisions. It was about the people around her taking full advantage of the chaos. Even now, insiders claim a lot of her assets were moved around without her full knowledge, and the public is questioning how decisions that major were made without clear transparency. It's becoming harder to believe this was simply protocol like her team tried to claim. What really pushed conversations further was how quickly certain figures in the industry distanced themselves when things got messy. Before the guardianship, some of these same people claimed to care deeply about Wendy and admired her influence. But the minute she lost her platform and her voice was quieted, they backed away like they never knew her. That sudden silence made the whole situation feel even more suspicious. Reports also mentioned that Wendy was often kept away from outside communication during key moments. Friends said they would go weeks, sometimes months, trying to reach her with no success, only to find out later she had been moved from facility to facility without their knowledge. For many, that was the biggest red flag of all, because cutting ties is one of the easiest ways to isolate someone and control the narrative surrounding them. There were also claims that during the guardianship, Wendy wasn't allowed to freely choose her medical team, diet, daily schedule, or even who she could speak to. That level of restriction made people question how much of her life was truly being managed for health and how much was being controlled for convenience. It's clear now why her family kept asking the court for clearer communication. Decisions were being made so quietly that nobody outside that circle even knew what was happening. Meanwhile, people who worked with Wendy over the years have started sharing their own stories. Many say she was sharp, functional, and very aware before all of this happened, which raises even more questions about how she was suddenly labeled incapable. According to some, Wendy was still handling business calls, managing projects, and making detailed plans at the time when her team claimed she was declining. That contradiction has become one of the biggest talking points online. Even financial experts began chiming in, saying guardianships are supposed to protect someone from losing their money. Yet in Wendy's case, her finances allegedly got more chaotic under the people assigned to protect them. Viewers pointed out that several of her properties were sold, major transactions were made, and items of value vanished with no clear explanation. People are now wondering how much of her wealth actually remains untouched. With all these new details being shared, the public is finally starting to connect pieces that never made sense before. And now that Wendy is speaking up again, her voice is adding even more fuel to questions the industry never wanted addressed. As the public keeps digging into Wendy's case, more strange patterns surrounding her guardianship have been creeping out, and each new detail makes the whole situation look even messier than before. People who once believed the official narrative are now questioning how much of the story was shaped for convenience rather than truth, especially with the amount of control that was placed on her life. One of the most shocking parts is how many people claim they noticed Wendy trying to pull herself together long before the courts acknowledged it. Sources who were around her before the situation escalated say she was making plans, setting goals, and actively trying to rebuild her life. Yet, despite demonstrating that kind of clarity, she was still treated like someone who had no understanding of her own decisions. That contradiction has been a major point of conversation online, and it's only getting louder. Another thing people have been revisiting is the financial side of the guardianship, because that's where things start to look extremely questionable. Reports suggest that certain transactions were approved without Wendy's full input, including property sales and asset transfers.
We come from a very homosexual era of hip hop as well. There was a radio personality once upon a time. Her name was Wendy Williams, and she was practically burned at the stake for talking about such. And now it's all come full circle. There were many situations, none of which to talk about, but there were many situations back in the day in my career, and it's all coming full circle now. So
fans noticed that items from her home, valuable pieces, sentimental belongings, and personal items disappeared under the explanation that they were no longer needed. That explanation didn't sit right with many viewers, especially when they realized how much money she reportedly lost during her time under tight control. There were also rumors floating around that Wendy's team was hosting meetings about her future without including her, even when she was medically stable enough to speak for herself. If true, this adds another layer to the argument that she wasn't treated as an individual with a voice. She was treated as a business asset being shuffled around. People are now questioning whether her well-being was ever the real priority. And what really has folks talking is how eerily similar patterns appear in the cases of other celebrities who faced restrictive legal setups. People are comparing timelines, motives, and outcomes, and noticing that certain stars were removed from the public eye right after they became vocal about sensitive topics. With Nicki Minaj openly warning people about what she believes is happening behind the scenes, it's turning this conversation from a personal matter into an industry-wide discussion. Even insiders admit off the record that the entertainment world has a long history of burying uncomfortable truths. Whenever someone becomes hard to control or starts speaking too boldly, suddenly their reputation shifts, their mental health gets questioned, and their finances fall into someone else's hands. It's a pattern people are only now starting to recognize for what it might actually be: a strategy. With all these threads lining up, the public is paying attention in a way they never did before. Every new update adds another puzzle piece, and it's becoming harder to argue that Wendy's story isn't part of something much bigger happening in the shadows. With everything coming to light, people are realizing this situation was never as simple as the industry tried to paint it. Wendy's story has sparked a whole new conversation about power, control, and what really happens when someone becomes inconvenient to the wrong people. And now that she finally has a real shot at walking away from all of this, the public is watching every move with sharper eyes than ever before. There's a feeling in the air that this case could shift how guardianships get handled for celebrities moving forward. Viewers are saying this might be the moment that exposes how easily someone can be boxed into a system designed to silence them. And with Nicki Minaj speaking up the way she has, people are wondering if she's trying to warn everyone before the same machine tries to come for her too. These conversations aren't slowing down. If anything, they're getting louder by the day. A lot of folks online believe that what happened to Wendy should have never reached this point. They're saying the lack of transparency, the sudden medical decisions, the financial moves behind closed doors, all of it should be investigated from top to bottom. Others feel like Wendy's comeback could be bigger than anyone expects, because now she has proof backing up everything she tried to say for so long, and that alone has people excited and nervous at the same time. Bottom line, people want Wendy free, healthy, and in control of her own life again. And whether Nicki Minaj is truly next in line for the same type of treatment is something only time will reveal. But the conversation is already sparking serious debate across the internet. But now I want to hear from you. What do you think about Wendy finally breaking out of this guardianship? And do you believe Nicki Minaj is really being lined up for the same situation? Drop your thoughts in the comments because this topic is getting wild fast. If you enjoyed this deep dive, make sure you like, share, and subscribe so you never miss the next breakdown, and don't go anywhere. Click on the next video that's popping up on your screen for even more celebrity drama. See you in the next one.